This is Believing Buckeyes. I'm Brian Brownie with All-American cornerback Chimdi Chekwa. I mean, it's November, man. We didn't have a bye week or anything like that. We kind of felt that way, man. The Purdue Boilermakers came to town. We took care of business, beat them 45-0. Chim, how you doing over there, man? How was your week? Did you even watch the game? Did you stay up for the second half? You take a
No, I,
nap,
wa-
man?
I
What's
watched
going
the
on?
game. I had all three of my kids. So I missed some plays, but yeah, Purdue. This is bye week number 3 for me. I feel like like this game, and even the way Ohio State, you know, rotated players, did a few things on the field that we hadn't seen. Almost felt like this was a kind of a glorified practice
Uh,
game.
yeah.
But they, came out with the win. Still haven't given up a touchdown. I don't know how long has it been since they given up a touchdown? Nebraska game?
Yeah, I think was it one touchdown against Nebraska?
Yeah.
Two, maybe.
So
Yeah,
it's been a while since their defense has given up a touchdown. So they keep the streak going. So was happy to see that. But I think all in all, the Buckeyes roll and they're building towards something. And I think that that building continues versus Northwestern. So
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, so yeah, looking at this Purdue game, Purdue is 1-8 for the season. Obviously we thank them for making the travel to Columbus this weekend, but they just didn't have much, right? I think even the field goal kicker, like they had a couple opportunities to hit some field goals. One was fairly close. They missed that. They just, I don't know. They just, I don't know. They just didn't bring much to the game this weekend. But I mean, obviously, but it was good for Ohio State. I think they had the right approach, right? You want to be playing your best football in November, and obviously we start November off with a big one, right? Playing Pitt State. Now we have Purdue, all right? Now we get to play a lot of guys, right? A ton of guys in this game, especially defensively, pretty even between like your first team, second team, like your third team guys got to play as well. Next week against Northwestern, probably expecting the same. Now they kind of get some experience on the road, right?
yeah.
Gives the
Yeah,
guys get some a lot of road experience. Northwestern is only 4-5 for the season. I guess the most interesting thing about the Northwestern game, obviously, we probably won't talk about it too much, but the most interesting thing about the Northwestern game is that we're playing at Wrigley Field, right? On the baseball diamond. Northwestern doesn't have a stadium due to the construction. They get a new one, so they don't have a stadium. So yeah, we get to play on Wrigley Field. I guess that would be something. I guess.
I mean, I guess it's something. For me, I want to see Ohio State to continue, I'm specifically defensively. All right, we saw some of the gymnos, 3-down linemen, jack position. I think Mitchell Melton was the player who kind of played that jack position this game. The plays didn't work as you would like. There was some good, but there was some bad. The bad was they gave up a lot of yards when they did it. But I would like to see more of that versus Northwestern. Another game where you anticipate that. I mean, it's just not going to be able to hang with these guys. And I know you want to respect your opponent. You want to make sure that you're not overlooking them because we've been in games where we've been a top ranked team versus a Purdue type team, and we've come up short. It's not going to happen this week. The reality is the talent gap, the team gap is big, and there's an opportunity to continue to build and add some tools to the toolbox because you're going to need those tools, especially this year. 12-team playoff, a lot of football still left to play, and the defense has been building something new. The challenge is that new came this season, during the season, right? You like when you're kind of building something, when you create, what you're gonna do. You like to do that in the off season and go into the spring, and then you have the summer, and then you go into camp, and then you get here. But this is the words of Ryan Day. We re-engineered the defense. All right. Kudos to Ryan Day for being the CEO and saying, "Look, whatever we're doing isn't working. Let's go fix it." But now, when you re-engineer a defense, you need some reps, right? And you need to figure out like what else can we do that we need to, try out or at least put on film to have teams begin to start to try to prepare for different looks. so that you can actually, begin to do exactly what you want to. So I want to see more of that. I want to see a little bit more experimenting, a little bit more innovation defensively. If for not, but one reason is we have a lot of talented, versatile players, and you can do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So while we're talking about defense, I guess someone that played this week who be frank, played a little bit early in the season, but last handful we really haven't seen them much. And CJ Hicks. Obviously he got to play a good amount of snaps this past week in that linebacker position. Kind of see him in the edge as well, kind of get in the backfield, doing different things. And after the game, I think the biggest thing is that, and it was in a joking matter. It's not like he was yelling at the coaches trying to make a statement.
Yeah.
He's not being Michael Parsons or anything of that nature. But he kind of reporter asked him, like, I think he's grabbing food. It's like, hey, and he just kind of yells out, "Play me on the edge, put me on the edge." And that's something I guess you've been talking about, man. Hell, like since before spring, about taking some of our young, talented players and just put them on the edge and letting them go. What did you see from CJ Hicks in the game? And then what's your thoughts about his statement that maybe that's a better fit for him instead of just kind of hanging out on the edge, running around?
My first thought is put him on the edge.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like put CJ Hicks on the edge. He's an athletic player. There's a reason why he was a highly ranked recruit. And it's because he's a gifted, physical, talented football player. I think the challenge is when I watch him play a lot of times at the linebacker position, it still feels like he's thinking the game, right? And I mean, as anybody who's played high-level football, when you're thinking on the field, you're not reacting. You're too slow. And it's not natural for him. And to his point, maybe a more natural position is putting him on the edge and letting him go, make plays, go attack. And there's two sides to this. From Jim No's standpoint, you need the depth at linebacker because if somebody can go down at any point in time, you need somebody who's had reps, who knows what they're doing, who can play with, who has the talent to actually be out there on the field. But there is other linebackers on the team that we haven't seen a lot of. I think a guy named Gabe Powers. Yeah, like that guy could play too. Put him out there at linebacker. I like CJ Hicks a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. I like him not having to think too much, going out there and pressuring. I'm not sure how much in practice. I'm assuming he hasn't done much in terms of blitzing, one-on-ones, etc. It's like a defensive end or a jack position type player. But to me, that's the archetype. That's who we should be building towards, especially because we've already seen him multiple years at linebacker. And I mean, at this point, it hasn't been elite. When he was an elite recruit coming in, and he said, "Put me on the edge." You know what I'm saying? Like that's one hump to get over. Does he want to do it? If he wants to do it, should let him do it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a good thought there. Because obviously, like you said, obviously he was a 5-star athlete. I know a lot of times the stars don't mean much when it comes to playing football. But one thing it can say for sure, it's not usually that guy's gonna be a 5-star athlete coming out of high school, and him not being athletic, right? He usually has like the size, the speed, the burst, and not the football has to. That's extra, right? That you kind of expect from there. So that's I guess a story to be told there. I want to talk about I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now, real quickly, and so Sonny Styles, another 5-star athlete, physical specimen, etc. He started on a safety. He moved to linebacker. Now, Sonny Styles is another guy that I said, look, he has the build to get put on the edge as well. But he's kind of starting to settle in at the linebacker position as they kind of shifted a little bit defensively, getting him out of a ton of like space and coverage position, allowing him to attack a little bit more, make quicker decisions. He's really settling in. There was a play versus Purdue. It was a screen pass, and it was a 3rd and long. I think it was the first drive. And it was a perfect call versus the blitz. They sent the blitz. Sonny Styles was the only person kind of sitting and waiting and reacting. Everybody's upfield. Purdue got 3 linemen out the block. It's the running back, 3 offensive linemen, Sonny Styles, and nobody else. Everybody else is man coverage. They're gone. He was able to get off the block of two guys, double teaming them, get off the block and go make a tackle. Or maybe a 6-yard gain when they needed like 14, 15 yards. And that shows his athleticism. It also shows that Purdue isn't really that great at football.
Yeah, man,
But,
that's an effort thing right there, man. Like what your shirt say, max effort. That was the minimum effort by Purdue offensive lineman on that one there for sure.
But it's an example of a guy who we know from a athleticism standpoint is talented, but we can get him more in a more natural position. CJ Hicks may be the next guy to kind of move closer to the line of scrimmage. It might be able to get him in a more natural position of what he's able to kind of continue to grow into, as opposed to what they're trying to do with him now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, so I want to shout out the offensive line. I think they had another stellar performance. Obviously, they kept things the same, right? Same thing that we saw against Penn State. We kept Diamond Jackson at the left tackle position, Carson Hens was at left guard, then the rest of the line was the rest of the line, Seth at center, Tegra at right guard, Fryer at right tackle. I think they played another solid game when it comes to overall their performance. It looks like Zim Malowski was still out. He was street clothes on the sideline, so obviously he was not in position to play. We don't know how long that's going to be, but I think one thing was a positive. We've seen Diamond Jackson get another week at being the left tackle, having to do some of those pass pro type of situations. Obviously, there was no Abdul Carter that played for the Boilermakers, so he did a pretty good stand-up job in the pass pro as well this week. So there's another week of that taking place, man. Just wanted to shout out, Jeremiah Smith. He's broke the record, the freshman record for receiving touchdowns as a rookie. Obviously, he's been playing special all year, but obviously it's Ohio State, man. There's a lot of talented wide receivers that have been through, that have played football here at the Horseshoe. What do you think about Jeremiah Smith's performance so far in the season, and him just continue to be like a true freshman professional and going out there and continue making plays and carry the load?
Yeah, you said it. Jeremiah Smith is a true freshman professional. This is a professional receiver playing in college as a freshman. Imagine what he was doing in high school as a senior. There's no reason why Jeremiah Smith should have played high school football. There's no reason at all, bro. But I want to quickly shout out to that point. I want to quickly shout out the guy whose record that he broke, which was Chris Carter. I don't know the exact years, but I didn't watch those years. Chris Carter, sometime in 19
something.
80s something. Was playing college football, and he set a record that wasn't broken until 2024. In an era when they wasn't throwing the ball all over the field like they are now. So that's a crazy accomplishment. So shout out to Chris Carter. But yeah, Jeremiah Smith, he has the opportunity to be probably the best. I don't want to crown a guy the best so soon, but definitely one of the best receivers that ever come through Ohio State. And the record kind of solidifies step one of reaching those heights. So shout out to him for sure. A great player. You mentioned the offensive line. Carson Hinsman had a little bit of a scare. My heart skipped a couple beats when I saw him go down. I did want another shuffle on the offensive line. He's been playing great. But he tweeted after the game and said, I don't know what the exact words, but
it was like God is good, and God is good for sure. They starts off. They said, and Don Joy is good as well, or something. So, and those are the knee braces. The knee braces you see all the offensive linemen wear. The big, heavy, bulky knee braces. They most likely saved him. Seems like they saved him a surgery and saved him maybe multiple weeks of not being able to play. So, shout out to Don Joy.
Shout out to Don Joy for doing what they're supposed to do and protecting our left guard. So shout out to him. And shout out to this is the guy who came in for him to finish the game as well.
Austin Sherfield. Yeah. And then obviously he's been playing that role all year. I mean, right? He started the first couple games when Donovan Jackson was out, started some games at left guard, and you see them rotating at right guard with Tegra for Austin. He's been playing that role that really, I mean, we talked about for the year, that's 6 offensive linemen, right? You need a couple more guys. Guys go down, and right now he has the experience, he has the confidence in his ability to go out there and hold the rope more or less when things are kind of going down. So another good game that we got through, and it seemed like most likely, I think Tylee Williams got a break this Williams, but it seemed like most of the guys made it through the game fairly healthy. Another thing you want to see when you're playing against the Purdue in
Yeah.
November, and you're getting a lot of guys some reps out.
Yeah. Got a lot of guys out there. I saw a few corners come in. There's one thing, I mean, obviously they blew them out. It wasn't a close game. But one thing that we talked about prior to the season when they first got Will Howard, and the one thing that we had never seen from him at Kansas State was, deep ball. We didn't know what his deep ball accuracy was like because we didn't see a ton of deep balls. And the reality was Kansas State didn't have a lot of guys to stretch the field. There has been a little bit of a consistency of him underthrowing the balls, missing on some of those deep balls. The reality is Ohio State has been good enough for most games where it's not going to, he's been a very accurate quarterback. He's made mostly good decisions, and the offense has been rolling for the most part. So it hasn't hurt the team. But, you get further down the line against a team with equal talent, those plays where, you've worked all week in practice on a play that you want your Jeremiah Smith, you want Carnell Tate in this situation. This is the play that's going to score us a touchdown on the 30-yard line, 40-yard line. This is the explosive play that's going to set us up for a touchdown. When you miss it, that could be a turn, you know what I'm saying? That could really impact how the game ends. So that's something just to keep an eye on. There's also been like some random like trips and falls and stuff. I don't know if that's OSU turf or what.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something they could work on and think about and need to hit on a couple, right? But at the same time, it's just like you got to keep calling them, you got to keep running them, and keep taking their shots when they're live. But real quick, I guess I wanted to kind of get into college football, right? I mean, obviously Ohio State, we had a walk in the park this past week against Northwestern. The biggest thing is we're playing at Wrigley Field. We'll see how that goes. We expect much of the same. Northwestern doesn't seem to have much there. It looks like they play with 2 running backs. We're both decent. Their quarterback has the ability to also, he's a dual threat. He can throw. He can do a little running and scrambling himself as well, something to keep an eye on. But Northwestern is sitting at 4-5. After this weekend, we expect them to be sitting at 4-6. But in college football, man, obviously they started the playoff committee, right? So we can kind of get things a little bit more official when it comes to how teams are really ranked and where they're sitting at in the nation. Right now, the Big Ten is doing really good, right? We have currently 4 teams that you could say are in the hunt for the playoffs, and and got a pretty good chance of making it when that comes to Oregon at 1, us at 2. Penn State is like 5, 6. Indiana's like 4 now, something like that in the rankings. What are your thoughts on the Big Ten essentially basically rising to the top, kind of sitting at the top of college football when it comes to conferences? And can we get these teams in the playoffs and these of them be competitive when it comes towards the end of the season?
Yeah, I think the Big Ten ends up with 4 teams in the playoffs. I think part of it is just because of scheduling. I mean, I can't say just because of scheduling. It's part of it. One part is that the 4 teams are
helps.
Good. Yeah, the 4 teams are good teams. And if I'm ranking the 4 teams that it's Oregon, Ohio State, whatever you want to take. Then it's the second tier, the leader of the second tier, at Penn State, and then it's Indiana, who has creeped into that second tier. But Indiana didn't really play any of these other teams, and obviously there's the matchup against Ohio State, but that would be just the one. And I don't think they get punished too much for losing to a top team. In the same way, Oregon played Ohio State. Oregon doesn't play Penn State. Penn State doesn't play Oregon. So, the fall off of Michigan this year, the fall off of Washington, 2 teams that were national championship last year, kind of helped prop up those 4 teams. I think in the future, you still kind of flirt with 4 or so teams every year, because I don't expect, forget about Michigan, but I don't expect, USC, Washington, somebody's going to emerge every year, kind of be a 4th or 5th team up there. So, but I think those 4 teams get in. I think the only way Indiana doesn't get in is if they just get beat so bad by Ohio State, which is there's potential for that
It's
to happen.
possible. All right, it's possible.
And all the other teams that are kind of flirting with the playoffs continue to play well, right? It's both sides of it. So, but the Indiana thing is interesting, man.
Yeah, it is interesting. So if you look at I think their strength of schedule, there's like in your hundreds. It's like the 111th, the 113th strength of schedule in the nation. Ohio State is the only team on the season that they would play that was ranked at the time they actually played them. So they played some other teams that maybe popped into the rankings, Nebraska that they kind of beat pretty handily. Looking at the rest of it, that's probably it. That's the only team that even for part of the season was ranked, and when they played them, they was not ranked. But Indiana really has been just kind of basically running through guys. This past weekend, they did play a Michigan team. Michigan played them tight. Michigan had a chance to win that game. Indiana got a lead early, and then from there, really not much. I think a late field goal was enough for them to get the job done, 20-15 over Michigan. But have you seen much? I know we kind of talked to him a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked about the coach, right? Some of his quotes and things of that nature, and how he evaluates talent. I don't know if we said it yet on the show, but we talked about this weekend the quote of how Purdue sucks, Michigan and Ohio State suck too. Like he's kind of really kind of leaning into it, and that was before the season. I've seen playing well, but have you seen much of Indiana, and what's your thoughts? And are they actually one of the top teams in the nation, and does their ranking hold?
Yeah, so Coach Signetti with Indiana, he is the Deion Sanders of the Big Ten without the the past, the NFL career and all that or whatever. But he'll talk in the interview, right? And I mean in this world, in the NIL world, doing that in the interview, it benefits the team. It gets people to pay attention to you. It gets the boosters excited, especially if you win. I mean, if you lose, it doesn't matter. You're gonna get fired. You're gonna get fired anyway if you're losing. But if you're winning, it gets people excited. It gets people tuned in. Indiana has a solid alumni base and whatnot. But I actually, when they played Michigan, it was the first time I really watched them play, and I wanted to see them against a defense. I want to see their offense against a defense that had NFL play. Right? And Michigan's offense is just they've been lost all year. But defensively, Michigan still has guys who are going to be playing on Sundays. And honestly, Indiana, offensively, they have a quarterback who's really good. He's really accurate. He's good with the ball. They have a lot of depth at the receiver position, so they can get the ball out quick. They can get the ball out. They can make some harder passes and catches look a little bit more routine. They throw those back shoulder fades like they're layups. And they do a great job with that, which can take the defensive line out of the game, right? Where I get the ball, I throw the back shoulder, I don't have to worry about, I get man to man on the outside, I can throw the back shoulder, I don't have to worry about nothing the defense is doing, I don't have to worry about the pressure, all that stuff. So that's kind of their strength, is the ability, whether I could be overmatched defensive line or whatever, the ability to throw the ball to the edges, get the ball to some of those playmakers, that's their strength. From a talent standpoint, though, there is still, to me, a very clear talent gap between Indiana and Ohio State, or Indiana and Oregon, or Indiana and Penn State. Honestly, I think there's a real talent gap, but they do have a group of guys who have played a lot of college football. I mean, you can follow these guys' careers. They started off at one school, ended up at James Madison, and ended up at Indiana, or they went to Alabama, or they went to. So they got a lot of guys who play ball, and they do a good job of executing what the game plan is. And I think what Coach Signetti has been able to do is get his guys to carry out whatever the game plan is and stick to that game plan. And that's what's going to help them be successful. And they're doing it, and they're executing it to the max. They're just like a team full of really good role players carrying out their roles and doing a really good job. But they do have some real good talent in spots. They got a defensive end who I think is really good. But I like the matchup for Ohio State versus Indiana. I just don't think that defense can hold up against Ohio State's offense.
To me, so whenever you play in Indiana, no matter how good Indiana's doing, what their season looks like, how fancy their offense is, the guy, the dean you're talking about, is Mikhail Kamara, who's 9.5 sacks on the season, that's pretty good in college football, especially at this standpoint. But to me, whenever you're playing in Indiana, it comes down to the trenches. And like you say, there's going to be a talent gap there, and yep, that talent gap is there. So that is a game that you go, and you have to be able to run the ball at your will. Whenever you want to, you line up and you run it. You need it 3rd and 2, you run the ball, you get 2, then we kind of get back up, and we should figure if we want to take a shot or not. But we know once we kind of get in that non-running situation, we're able to execute and win. And then I expect our defensive ends to kind of shake things up. I expect JT, Jack Sawyer, when we do play the Indiana Hoosiers here in a couple weeks, and obviously we're not players, right? So we don't have to wear no Western like the team do. We should get right to Indiana. But I expect those guys, whoever's on the edge, Sawyer, JT, Milton, even the CJ Hicks, if it's his time to kind of start lining up on the edge when they play the Hoosiers, for them to really be disruptive and kind of take that offense out of rhythm, and we'd be able to kind of control that game and win it. But you got to take care of Northwestern first, and then next week we kind of have all the numbers and stats to get us hyped up for our big game against the Hoosiers. That's also going to be on at 12 o'clock on Fox. A lot of people's upset about that. But.
I'm one of those people. I'm tired of the 12 noon games. I will say this, man. I in preparation for last weekend, I went on Bet Online, play some bets.
Okay.
I had two teams. I had 2 teams that I was looking at the spread on Bet Online. Georgia Tech versus Miami, because the spread was like 10.5 points, and I felt like Georgia Tech was going to play it close. They ended up getting the win. Yeah. And then Florida versus Texas.
Yeah.
Now I was only going to choose one in this situation. I chose the wrong one.
Man!
I didn't really do my research and understanding that Florida's quarterback was not going to actually be playing in the game. The quarterback was hurt and he was out for the game. However, BetOnline is your source for all things betting. You got all the stats, all the information out there, but you gotta actually look.
You gotta read it. You gotta read it.
Look at the information.
Yeah, man. But hey, better luck this next week, man. I'm sure the odds will forever be in your favor, man. But hey, we're gonna end this show like we always do with an OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.